This is number 19 from the 2014 Geometry SOL. It says Reuben attached a wire between two poles and a hill is shown. Which is the closest value to x, the distance between the two poles? So when I look at this, when I see a right triangle, I think first thing, Pythagorean theorem. Problem is, to do the Pythagorean theorem, that a squared plus b squared equals c squared, you need to know two sides of a right triangle. I don't have that here. But I do have a right triangle, and you should have learned some stuff about trigonometry. And for my students, I always tell them to write out, Oscar had a heap of apples. And then write out the sine of theta, the cosine of theta, and the tangent of theta here. If you forget that order, it's the same order on your calculator. Sine, cosine, and tangent. And so now you've got your trig equation set up. Some of you might use SOHCAHTOA from your class, so that's fine. I don't like SOHCAHTOA because it doesn't set up the equation for you. I use theta here. You may not have heard of theta before. That's just another letter here. It's a Greek letter. You could use x if you wanted to, but typically in math we use theta for an angle. So I want to get my students used to that and to realize you never put a side in there for theta. It's always an angle. So when you approach your problem, the first thing you do is circle your theta you're talking about. I'll choose the 20-degree angle there. Never choose the 90-degree angle. You could say, hey, that's 70 up here and use that, but you usually use the one given to you there. And then label your sides. First side I want you to label is the opposite side. And so opposite of the 20-degree angle is this side right here. And so that's going to be my opposite side. And then we want to label the hypotenuse next. Do it in this order. Opposite side first, then the hypotenuse. The hypotenuse, most students know from Pythagoras, is the opposite side of the 90. So in this case, 80 is my not opposite, but it's my hypotenuse. And then label your adjacent last. I say that because students always get confused which one's the adjacent. It's the last one if you've already labeled opposite and hypotenuse. So I need to set up my trig equation now. What was given to me? I know the hypotenuse. I know the angle. What do I want to know? I don't care about the opposite side. It's not asking for me about the opposite side. It's not giving me the opposite side, so just forget opposite. And then I want to know the adjacent. So when I look at this, there's only one trig function I've got listed here that deals with adjacent and opposite. And I'm not adjacent and opposite, adjacent and hypotenuse. So throw out the ones with opposite. That has an opposite there, throw it out. That's got an opposite there, throw it out. And that leaves me with this one right here. So that tells me to use the cosine function. So cosine, and your angle always goes inside of here, it's 20. Cosine of 20 equals, what does it say? The adjacent over the hypotenuse. So x over h, which is 80. Multiply both sides by 80. So you do this just like you're solving a regular equation, because that's what it is, a regular equation. And this is what you're going to punch into your calculator. Make sure your calculator is in degree mode, because we're talking about degrees here. That's a degree, not radian mode. If you have questions on that, Google it. Figure out how to put your particular calculator in degree mode and make sure it stays there. And then just punch it in just like you see right there. So typing that into your calculator, you're going to get 75.17. And so our correct answer here is D. Now, if you had had your calculator in radian mode, you would have gotten the answer 32.6. And they've been kind of confused because none of those match up. Sometimes they might match up. Sometimes you might get a negative number and then you just get confused and think you did something wrong up here, when really it's just you got the calculator in the wrong mode. So even if you're coming up with a weird number like a negative value, or if it's just not matching up, either way, I hope you make sure you're in degree mode before you even start. But if something seems off, just have that in mind. Did I put it in degree mode when you're taking the test there? Some calculators will require you to enter this number first, 20, and then hit cosine, and then times it by 80. So it's important you're familiar with your calculator, how it works, before you tackle a big test like this. Thanks for watching, and keep working hard.